I have 10 more minutes. I have 10 more minutes of this book left. And tell me why. Tell me why. If if the characters just communicated, if they just laid out a simple consequences, a pros and cons list of everything that could have possibly happened, everything that could have potentially happened if this character did the thing that she wasn't supposed to be doing. If the character did the thing that they didn't want her to do. Why is there this trope where it happens in YA so much? Oh my fucking god. Where the adults don't want to trust the youngins. So then they don't explain things to them. So then when the youngins act in opposition to every single thing that they didn't explain, the youngin, they're surprised. The adults are surprised. The adults are like, why the fuck are they acting like this? Why are they doing this? It just, oh, why is this a trope in YA? Why? So I finished it. I finished it. Um, I three, 3 out of 5. I I am not the demographic. I am aware that I am not the demographic for this book. It's YA. I think I would have loved this when I was in high school and when I was maybe in middle school, and I would have fawned over it and I would have loved it, and I possibly would have loved the world building. But it really pisses me off when the whole ending of a book could have been changed with characters having open communication. And like I said earlier, the whole ending is brought about by characters not having open communication. And then I'm trying not to spoil it, but it's just that's how the ending is brought about. I want to rate it more. I was expecting more. The powers were cool. The power system was cool, and I feel like we didn't explore that enough. Um I feel like we didn't really get to spend that much time with the characters. It was just too quick for me. It was just way too quick for me. I I feel like 400 pages wasn't enough for this, but I feel like somebody had to have told they needed to change that. That miscommunication trope is just not it. And it just makes that whole ending just, especially since the people having the miscommunication trope end up communicating with somebody else everything they could have communicated with the main character, and they just didn't. They just didn't communicate it to one character, and they communicated it to another character, and it could have easily been solved. This that whole ending could have easily been solved. I i was enjoying this book. I enjoyed the first 100 pages. Then the at the 200 page mark, I was getting a little worried, and then when I got to a certain page, I was like, nope, this is this is gonna be a book that is not my favorite. It's gonna be a book that's not my favorite, and I want to enjoy this. I it's so the world building is there. The world building could have been explored more. Like, it could have been explored a lot more. This many pages is not enough to explore the vast world and the vast magic system that this has. I don't think this many pages does it justice. And we don't get to really spend that much time with the characters either. All the character relationships were really, like, super rushed. There was only one pair that I was like, okay, this is believable. But the other pair, I was like, you guys just spent half the book hating each other and being really angsty to each other. And now you want me to believe from one chapter to the next that you guys are in love. And I don't believe it. I'm just going to go over my annotations because this will further explain a lot. this has a little bit of everything. Comments: I want it to be longer. Younger kids as main characters. Wish the kids were a little bit older. Message that explains younger age of characters. Basically, like, it explains why the main characters are young. Sometimes children surrounded by war are forced to grow up earlier. And like that message in the book, I understood. I was like, okay, this is a message that needs to be said and it needs to be out in the world. And I was grateful for this book to actually put that in the pages. Power system: summoning ancestors to use their powers and growing their abilities. Dragons are bonded to riders. The consequences of war and how it turns people against each other and allows people to spew hate to innocent people that are of that race of the person that was the enemy. Basically, what I meant by that is like when we're at war and we pit two people against each other, kind of like sports teams, then every person of that opposing team is now labeled as the enemy, and it shouldn't be like that. It should be, it's not just good and evil, it's there's good people on all sides. And that was another message in the book that I was like, this is perfect for this book. Characters act very young and dialogue feels very age appropriate for the book. And i am not I am not the age group for this book. I'm really not the age group for this book. More action near the beginning. I feel like this entire book just needed more dragons and more action throughout the entire book. More showing versus telling would be nice. I feel like we were told a lot of things near the beginning to the middle of the book, and even to the very end. I was like, I feel like we there could be examples of certain things that can be shown, and I it's speechless. Um, the relationship that I saw, and this is was the miscommunication trope. It felt very much like Anakin and Obi-Wan, and like if Obi-Wan and Yoda and Mace Windu just explained things to Anakin instead of making him feel like a terrible person because Padme was gonna like get and like would have tried to help him find a way to save Padme. Like everything just would have been solved in that story arc for Star Wars. And that's kind of like the same arc that I found in this book. Not trusting young people with information that pertains to them because they can't trust them to keep their mouths shut, but can depend on them to save the whole world trope. That's literally the trope that I was talking about earlier. I would have loved the prologue of for Farron defeating the enemies in the first battle would be nice, or just flashbacks throughout the whole book. Uh, both relationships feel underdeveloped, but one is cuter than the other. The Sapphic relationship was way better developed than the other relationship, but I feel like they were both very underdeveloped because of the page count. I feel like if they had more pages, then a lot of kinks of this, a lot of problems of this book would be solved. And I feel like if there was a few changes, the miscommunication trope would have been changed and we would have been able to explore the world and we would have been able to like really dive into it and spend 1,000 pages in this book and like maybe age up the characters a little, just a little, then it would have helped the entire book as a whole. Um, gods could gods could have solved this by having open communication. Literally, gods could have solved like the entire ending by having open communication. And I said, Tarkling using Alina's power against her. If you know what I mean, then you know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't. I absolutely don't want to rate this a 3 out of 5. I don't. I absolutely don't. It feels crappy to do so. I don't like rating books bad. I really don't. But this was just one of those things where it was like, what the hell, dude? What? What? There's just a lot of issues with the book that could have easily been solved by like extending the page count, open communication, just different things that could have been tweaked throughout the whole novel, and it would be perfect book. It would just be an amazing novel.